Thank you very much, Stuart, for the kind introduction, and it's great to be here with you. I'm going to start by doing something which I normally don't do, and that is to mention a couple of names, because I'm very grateful to many of you who are present here today. And that's why I'm just going to mention a few people, because I could have only developed Plan S with the help of you. And if I mention these names, I immediately mention Ralph and Georg from Max Planck Gesellschaft. They are sitting over there, I think, together with Gerard Meijer. It's an enormous source of inspiration for me. Christina van Lieber, Garrett from Eurodoc, Koen Moritz from the Young Academy, Daniela Spichtinger, who worked at the European Commission, who was an enormous source of inspiration for me as well. Of course, Liz from Wiley, Wim from Springer, Stefan and Ron from Elsevier, Vic from Faculty 1000, Camilla and Fred from Frontiers, and I could continue, but these were people who really, for me, were essential. Saskia and Johan from TTOA, you mentioned as well, they played a very important role in helping me to shape Plan S. That does not mean that we always agreed, on the contrary, but they helped me to shape Plan S and to also to detect where was the problem and how we could move forward to accelerate the transition to full and immediate open access. The second thing I would like to mention, after thanking many of you, is to apologize for not always being able to react to your mails or the input I got. When we presented Plan S on the 4th of September, things went crazy. We received on that same day 70,000 tweets, and I received an avalanche of mails and phone calls. And normally I try to get back to everyone who sends me a mail, as many of you know, but it was just impossible to do that in the last 2 weeks because things have been really going wild. Just perhaps a couple of words about why I got this assignment and why it is from the European Commission so important that we really move forward on this. We have been talking about open access already for years, 20, 30 years. And you're all familiar with all these declarations and statements that things need to change and we need to really move to full and immediate open access. And also the European Ministers for Science and Innovation of the 28 member states of the EU, they got together during the Dutch presidency in 2016 and said, well, we need really now to be serious about the transition to full and immediate open access, and by 2020 it should be settled. Well, then if you look at where we stand today, you see that we are not getting there by 2020. On the contrary, things are extremely slow. And that's why I was given this assignment to really look into the transition and propose policy measures to speed up the transition. And this is a mandate which is given to me by President Juncker himself. I report directly to him and to the vice presidents, which also shows, I think, the importance which the European Commission attaches to open access. I quickly saw where is the problem, but I also saw quickly where is the solution. And the solution for me was very clear. These were with the funding agencies. Because something which always surprised me in the whole big deal negotiations in many of the countries were that only in 7% of the negotiations the funding agencies were there. And in most of the cases they left it to the libraries and to the universities to sort it out with the big publishers. While at the same time these funding agencies are responsible for, of course, the public purse. And they are the ones, as we have seen with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who can call the shots. So I very quickly detected the problem. We are not having a quick acceleration to full immediate open access. I also quickly saw who holds the key to the solution, and these are the funding agencies. But the funding agencies, of course, all said, when I talked to them, well, we can only do it when we do it together. If we do it in one specific country, this is not fair to the others because this will not be helping our science community. We need to do it together. And that's why I developed this Plan S, by simply talking to all these funding agencies across Europe and asking them, would they be willing to join a coalition around 10 principles to really, for once and for all, push open access forward. And that's exactly what happened. We were able to get a coalition of some 11 funding agencies, really motivated to move forward on open access. And you have all seen these 10 principles of Plan S. It is not rocket science. It's very much cut and paste from what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing, who, by the way, you probably have seen it, issued a very nice statement of support to Plan S in the last couple of days. So it's not rocket science. It's very robust and very straightforward principles, but principles which are game changers. And the most important principle, which was on the previous slide, is, of course, if you get a grant from any of the funding agencies at national European level, you can only use that grant to publish in open access journals. That is the key principle. And then there are, of course, 10 other principles with regard to copyright, with regard to licenses, with regard to hybrid journals, which are very straightforward, quite bluntly formulated as a way to indeed accelerate the transition to full and immediate open access. I found an extremely good ally in this endeavor, Plan S, with Mark Shields, who is the president of Science Europe, this European Federation of National Funding Agencies, an extremely dedicated and motivated and intelligent person who immediately said, let's join forces, let's do this together, and spend a lot of his time, he's a busy person, in helping me to roll out Plan S and to indeed get support for it. I should also mention, since we are here in Austria, a key role which was played by the FWF. Falk is here in the room as well, an amazing organization. The boss there, Clement Tockner, is also a champion on open access. So I'm also grateful very much to the Austrians who are hosting at the moment this event for their support. Now, who are these funding agencies who are on board? They are listed here. We are still missing a couple of them, and as we speak, there are discussions going on in Finland, there are discussions going on in other countries, and people see if they can not sign up to it, and I hope indeed that this list will gradually grow. This is not a fixed list. We hope that Coalition S, which is built around Plan S, is going to grow. I'm also in touch with the big charities, the big foundations, like the Wellcome Trust, the Volkswagen Stiftung, Bertelsmann Stiftung, Gulbenkian, Boudewijn in Belgium, to see if also they cannot sign up to Plan S. And let's not forget, these foundations invest each year 5 billion euro into science and innovation. It's half the budget of Horizon 2020. So these are big players, so also going to work on them. Increasingly, we are also trying to reach out to other parts of the world to see if they also cannot get on board, because this needs to be a global coalition which hopefully then can accelerate transition to full and immediate open access. I will skip that one. First reactions. Again, on the first day when we presented Plan S, there were 70,000 tweets, and there were all kinds of fora which started and blogs which emerged and articles. And overall, they have been, I must say, extremely positive. Positive reactions from the science community, positive reactions from universities, LERU, the European University Association, really big statements of support from the science community. And of course, there's also criticism, because that would not be logical if there was no criticism. There are, of course, critical remarks made by the publishers. There are critical remarks made by certain scientists, and I think that's only fair, because this is quite a robust proposal, which is a game changer, and it would, I think, it would be very surprising if no one would oppose that or would have critical remarks on it. I've put here a couple of these positive remarks on a slide. Very inspired for me. Inspiration was Mrs. Vidal, the French minister. She was the first one who in July already, before we presented Plan S, gave her support openly at the big conference, the LIBER conference in Lille. She was the very first politician who said, I want to personally commit to it. Also the UK government, very outspoken, very quickly in support of Plan S. So it's just been amazing how many senior persons have been signing up to it, including Commissioner Moedas, of course, but as obvious, I work at the Commission, so I'm backed up by the Horizon 2020 troops. Besides all these, say, comments and reactions, a lot of them from organizations, the STM, LERU, EOA, what touched me most in all these reactions were the personal reactions. And I've put one on the slides here, and that's from a student in India. And if you read it, I think it speaks for itself. And I received a lot of these reactions from individual scientists from Mexico, from Brazil, from Pakistan, from India, just, being grateful for the work we are doing. And when I had to reply to all these hundreds of mail which I received, I give priority to those ones, because these were for me the most touching and the most moving. So this is what I had to say, and I keep it short, Stuart, deliberately, because I think it's much more interesting that we have a debate afterwards, because I want to hear your views. I want to see to what extent you can contribute to Plan S. My agenda is very clear for the next months. First of all, to extend the coalition of funding agencies, and I mentioned already the foundations, like the Wellcome Trust I would like to reach out to. I'm very grateful for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation who signed up. Secondly, I want to look for many more statements of support from organizations, learned societies, academies, groups of researchers, to really say we are behind you. And then we are starting work on the implementation plan of Plan S. There's going to be a dedicated task force created, composed of a lot of members from Science Europe, and they are the ones who are going to, together with me, then work on an implementation plan, which I want to be ready by the end of the year. And this will cover very clearly issues like what will be the cap on the APCs, how long will we have a cap, so very clear, detailed arrangements for implementing Plan S. I count on all of you to contribute to that. I count on all of you to continue the dialogue and debate. And again, we will not always agree, but I know one thing, and if we do not take robust measures, we are having another 10 or 20 years of debate, and I just think we can't afford that. One final person I would like to thank as well, because I skipped a number of names I saw. Jasmine from Bril is here as well, present in the room. So again, I may have skipped a lot of names of people who came to see me, who inspired me, who gave me information, who told me how the world of publishing goes. And again, very grateful, and sorry for if I did not mention the names of all the people who came to see me and sent me inputs to help me Plan S. Thank you very much.
So we have some time for questions, probably about 20 minutes before we have our tea break. If I may, I'm going to misuse the chair's privilege and ask the first question before you get the chance. And it's for Rob Yan. In this room, I don't think we'll be surprised to understand that we're all going in the same direction as you. We all have the same objective as you ultimately. So I think there's a lot of support in this room for that. However, I think there's a lot of detail still to be worked out, and we may not be able to answer many of the questions about the specifics. But one of the things that I'd quite like some clarity on, if it's possible, is whether or not there's a green compliant option involving the accepted manuscript version. Do you see that as being compliant with Plan S, for example, with no embargo on CC BY license?
Well, I can talk in terms of green or gold, although I like the word platinum and diamond, by the way, even if it's not mentioned. I think we have to really stick to the principles we have set out. As we had already an exchange on that, my answer to your question is a very big yes.
Okay, good, thank you. So, anyone else? Paul?
So yesterday, first I'm Paul Peters, the president of OASPA, and yesterday I laid out some of the priorities that we've been discussing at the board for the next 10 years ahead. And one of them is trying to find practical solutions to the problems that stand in the way of this transition to a fully open access world. And something that you mentioned in your slides as an important principle is that individual researchers should not be bearing the cost of paying publication charges. So I guess I have both a question and then a proposal, which is, in order to facilitate the payment of funds from a large number of funders to the very large number of fully open access publishers, this is not 5 or 6 large publishing houses, do you have any idea of what sort of mechanism you would put in place there? And that's the question part. The proposal part is that I believe OASPA could be a great partner in aggregating the messiness on the publisher side if there's interest on the funder side for us to come together and try to solve that challenge?
Well, indeed, Plan S clearly says that the costs should the APC, if there is an APC, because let's be clear, and this was some of the criticism I received as well, that we don't give credit to those, of course, journals, platforms which work without an APC. And indeed, that is very valid. But in case there is an APC, we've made it quite clear that it should not be carried by the individual researcher. That will be carried by the funding agency. The funding agency, or in case there's a block grant from the government, by the university concerns, but in any case, never by the owner. This will, of course, require dedicated mechanisms on how we want to manage that. In a couple of countries, it's already the case. There are dedicated calls organized with certain funding agencies to cover APCs, where people can indeed apply for covering APCs. In other countries, there are universities who take the responsibility. So there's a lot of good practices on that. But I think any support and any ideas which we could further use, like also to help your organization, I think we're more than welcome. And that's the reason why I'm here, not just to tell what we're going to do with the implementation plan. We are starting to develop the implementation plan to call all of you to come with creative ideas.
David Prosser from Research Libraries UK. Can I pick up on this question about the implementation plan? Is it your intention, or is it the intention of the funders that they would all share one plan, or will there be variations amongst the different funders with some nuances and differences in how they implement Plan S?
Plan S is an integrated approach, so it's not a menu where you say I go for a dessert only. You have to go for the whole meal. All these principles are linked to each other, and the funding agencies, the 11 who are signed up to it, include all 10 principles. And I think we have to be extremely careful that we are seeing in one part of Europe that they only implement the first 3 principles, in another part of Europe, no. This should be a coherent package, also they should have a level playing field, which is still very important to respect.
Hello, I'm Toby Green. I work for the OECD, which is, as you know, an economic place. And I'd like just to quote another economist, Milton Friedman, said, "We economists don't know much, but we do know how to create a shortage. If you want to create a shortage of tomatoes, for example, just pass a law that retailers can't sell tomatoes for more than 2 cents a pound." Now, I noticed that you put price caps in as part of Plan S. I'd like to understand a bit more about what you intend to do there, and so that you don't end up creating a shortage of tomatoes.
This is one of the mostly debated parts of Plan S, is whether we should have a cap or not. I'm very much pushing myself for the cap. The people from the DFK, by the way, who were also in the discussions, although we didn't sign finally, not yet, we're very much pushing for a cap. To avoid, of course, that when we go full multi with Plan S, that we see suddenly APCs being put forward of 9,000 euros, 6,000 euros, 8,000 euros. So the idea would be to first have a cap for a limited period of time to stabilize the market, and then let go of the cap. Something similar happened in Switzerland. We had a cap, as you know, and then they got rid of it. So that is something which we are thinking of, notably again to avoid that we have an explosion of costs in the first year or 2 years that we implement it. Now a lot of people tell me, and I'm very much aware of that, they say, well, it will lead to a race to the top, and then suddenly everyone will ask for the maximum amount of the cap. I don't believe that. I think there will be enough competition, and that the clever ones who offer high quality at a lower price will probably then outbeat the ones who are thinking they're clever to go for the maximum of the cap. And people are asking as well, will be the cap? How much? That is something which we are going to discuss. I know very well what I would like to see, because I have been looking into a lot of details about what does it take to publish an article and to run a journal. And I got a lot of information from all kinds of publishers, from frontiers, across, Scope 3. They all send me details about what it takes to publish an article to run a journal. So I have a very good idea what would be a fair price. And this is also a price which should be fair, because I want that the big publishers, the Elsevier, the Wileys, the Springer Natures, that they join in, that they flip their journals, and that they be part of this transition. They are for me a very important partner, and I want them to join in. And that's why I've extended an invitation to them to come to talk to me about what they would see as a fair cap, a fair APC, in order to join the transition, because they run first-class magazines, journals, and I want them to be part of this transition, and I want them to flip all of their journals.
Saskia de Vries from the Fair Open Access Alliance. We've been discussing this before, but as you say yourself, you get different prices from different... Oh, okay, we've been discussing this before, but you have been hearing different prices from different publishers, which is normal, because it also depends on which, in which discipline you are publishing and how big your journal is. So we would like to suggest to you that you also include the transparency of the APC or the publication costs, because that way you would get a market working, people can compare it, and you can be fair in what you cover. So if a publisher has little costs and a low APC or low publication cost, you just pay less than if it's a very high one, but they can reason it.
I think a very fair point, Saskia. We discussed it before. I think this transparency issue I've mentioned, it should be part of the game, of course. That's something which we will put as condition, that there's full transparency about pricing, and that there are no surprises or hidden costs which we have to know.
Peter Kraker from Open Knowledge Maps. I have a question that relates to Peter Suber's comments on Plan S, and one of his remarks was that the language around the open access infrastructure was not particularly clear, and his argument was, and I tend to agree with that, is that the infrastructure around open access should also be open, meaning open source and open bibliographic and bibliometric data. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on this.
Well, he's a person who I admire a lot, and I follow everything which he reads. And I like very much that in his article, which I'll be referring to, which is I think read by all of us, he makes it very clear that even if it's not perfect, he will sign up to it immediately. And so this is something which I like very much. But he's quite clear about the fact that we don't give enough credit to the diamond and platinum routes. He's very clear that with regards to the green, because I don't use the word green, that we have to be a bit more nuanced. And he talks about infrastructures. We have a sentence there about infrastructures, that we are willing to invest, and talk about funders, in infrastructures where they are not yet available or where they are necessary. And look at the European Commission, and you've all seen the call which they have launched to get it to create a dedicated platform. Well, this is of course an infrastructure which is supported by the public purse. So that is something which we definitely will look into. What type of infrastructures are we going to set up or to support in order to really get this transition on the road and reach the target 2020.
Any more questions?
I'm sorry, I'm sort of hidden away in the middle of the room here. My name's Mark Purvis, and I'm from the Institute of Physics Publishing Company. And I wondered if you could just give us one or two clues about how the transitionary aspect of the hybrid open access model might be integrated into Plan S. There's some reference to the use of full offsetting as a mechanism. How do you see that actually evolving in the very short period we have before 1st of January 2020?
Well, this is, besides the cap, also another point which we discussed at length between funding agencies, is what to do with hybrid journals. Well, I don't like them at all, to be quite frank, and I only see their usefulness as a form of transition. or as Max Planck calls them in the context of the transformative agreements, the offsetting agreements. And in a number of countries, like in Germany, there are negotiations going on where hydrogens are used for a limited period of time in order to facilitate the transition to full and immediate open access. And there we clearly say in the preamble to Plan S, there's no problem whatsoever with that. But we will not like to see hydrogens as a new cash cow for the next 20 years to come. That should not be the case. In other words, hydrogen should not become a new business model, which they are about to become. That is what's not acceptable. Where they are part of a transition agreement or transformative agreements, as the people from Max Planck call it, we have no problem whatsoever with that for a limited period of time, not more than 2, 3, max 4 years.
Martin Hicks, Beilstein Institute. Robert Jan, you mentioned that there's not enough credit being given to platinum and diamond open access publishers, and we are a platinum open access publisher and do agree with this point. Have you got any specific plans in Plan S to redress the balance and support platinum and diamond more?
Well, if you look at the principles, we say in case there is an APC, so indirectly we of course talk there about diamond and platinum. But I take that criticism, and I think it's fair. We should have given much more credit to this. And it's my mistake. We should have mentioned it explicitly, because that's something which I like a lot. I see fantastic work being done by your organization in that field. So therefore, Plan S will not change. We stick to 10 principles. We will not make a 11th principle and about platinum or diamond. But in the whole implementation plan which we are developing now, we certainly will give the reference to that.
Hi, Ros Pine, Springer Nature. Plan S mentions that books are part of the plan and that you would like to see the same principles for books, but perhaps at a different timescale. Can you tell me a little bit about your thinking about open access for books? What sort of timescale are you envisaging, and have there been any discussions about how you might get us there for books?
I didn't get that.
What's the plan for books and timescale?
Okay. This is another big discussion which we had between the funding agencies, what to do with monograph reviews. And it was interesting, and I'll first straightforward. Originally, someone said we need, in the principles from us, make an exception for social science humanities. And I said, no, that's something which I don't want. We can make an exception for monograph books, but not for a single discipline, because then we have, again, one discipline we single out. And then we started to debate about the possible situation for monographs and books. And I talked to a lot of organizations, publishers, and Stuart mentioned well the discussion in London on that. The people say, you know, we're not going to make it up in 2020. It's not realistic. We had between the funders enormous difference of dates. Some said 2022, others said 2026. At the end, we agreed not to have a deadline for that. Although many people say, well, you treat it differently, we should also have been much more strict on monographs and books. But at the end of the day, you have to let the funding agencies come to, I think, a compromise. And the compromise was there only to leave it open and therefore not have a specific deadline. That does not mean that we will be not on the back of those who produce the monographs and books. So of course we keep a close eye on it, and I would not exclude that in the implementation plan we would say a few more words about how we would like to see monographs and books develop towards full and immediate open access over the years to come.
Katrina McCallum from Hindawi. There's been a lot of pushback from both publishers and some academics about the restriction on their freedom to choose where to publish. And in the preamble you also made a commitment to change the evaluation system, starting with DORA. Could you say a bit more about how you're going to progress the sort of cultural change that will enable that?
Well, first with regard to the critical reaction, as I said, it's only logical because it's quite a radical plan which we have put forward. And don't forget, if you look at the market of scholarly publications, it's according to some 25 billion euro or dollar market, or I would use the 10 billion euro 10 billion euro markets per year. So there are huge vested interests, and notably amongst the established publishers, this will have major consequences for their business model. So of course there's criticism from their side, if we understand it. There's also criticism from certain scientists, and there was recently, I think, quite an interesting article, a 14-page long article, about which is called Plan S unethical, which I find it very unfair, to be quite frank. And if you would say that we have had a situation where we have all the paywalls for years, you call that unethical, I don't understand. To call Plan S unethical, that's I think is not fair. But anyhow, I'm seeing the people in the next weeks to talk with them about it. They raised this issue about academic freedom, and this is typically, if you want to completely stifle debate, you call it academic freedom. It's a danger. Well, academic freedom is about the research you want to do and where you want to do it. Academic freedom is of course not about that you can publish wherever. That will be quite clear. The DFK is also very much keen on pushing academic freedom, and therefore say we're not keen to sign up yet. When there was a huge row during the summer about predatory journals in Germany, the DFK was the first to say, oh, we don't want people to publish in predatory journals. So, I mean, academic freedom, if you really then are adhering to the principle of academic freedom, you should also, allow them to people to publish in predatory journals. There's another element. Suppose you submit an article to a publisher, and the publisher refuses to publish it. Well, this is hindering your academic freedom because you want to publish, and the journal says, no, you don't get. Come on. Using this argument, I think, is the wrong argument in debates on which we have at the moment. So I don't buy at all that Plan S goes against academic freedom. I think on the contrary, Plan S pushes this and encourages scientists to publish more, to publish better, and to make sure that it is not a happy few who can get access to it, but that it's really a large group of people who can access to it. The famous obsession with the journal impact factor. This is something which, of course, we also mentioned in the Plan S in the preamble, that we really should try to get rid of this obsession with the journal impact factor. And for me, I was in Scandinavia and in Sweden when I had a dinner with a number of people, with the president of a Swedish university, and she told me, and she was embarrassed by it, she said, I nowadays, because of lack of time, I only recruit people based on the journal impact factor. And she said, in the old days, I looked at what they had published, how they were teaching, how they were knowledge transfer, how they were good science, I don't have time for that anymore. And it's, I think, a very sad situation that we recruit people on the basis of where they publish and not what they publish. So we really need to work on new metrics, and that's also what the European Commission, as you know, are doing together with funding agencies to try to really make sure that these DORA principles, of which we all signed up to, that these DORA principles are adhered to. And this is also something which the young academy has told me, because you have mentioned also in thanking people, the people Koen and Moritz from the Global Young Academy, they also made it clear to us, they say, listen, we don't want to become a victim of these changes with Plan S, and that means that DORA has to become a reality in the university. If the people inside the university, the management, remains obsessed with the journal impact factor and have reward systems based on that, we will be a victim if ultimately Plan S is going in a different direction. So we really need to change the culture, as you rightly said. And that's also a debate which has been going on for years, and I really call upon universities to really change the culture for rewards and for recruiting. And I mentioned on several occasions, and I was there quite a lot, that there's a lot of hypocrisy inside the universities with regard to which we have been done. And when I met in Edinburgh with a number of the leading universities in Europe, and I've mentioned that in a couple of articles and interviews as well, and they all said, open access, let's go for it, we need to get rid. And then I asked the question, and who's still on editorial board of a subscription journal? And then half of them raised their hands, and the other half was, of course, embarrassed to raise their hands. This is hypocrisy. If you really believe in open access, you want to build the paywalls, you go walk the walk. We talk the talk,
Okay, excellent. That's a good note for which to end. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. We've got one more question.
Right, thank you. Hi, I'm Amy Nixon from Emerald Publishers in the UK. We're predominantly social sciences publisher, and we're a mixed model, so we still have a number of subscription journals. And just over a year ago, we took the decision to remove our embargo period across all of our journals, so we operate zero embargo. I was just wondering, as the ultimate aim seems to be a full flip to gold journals, can you see that making green irrelevant or phasing out over time, if that's the way that that's going?
I don't use green, I don't use gold in my talk. We have principles and no embargo. We have principles APC-based system, or when there's no APC, veteran option. So from that point of view, embargoes are not part of something which we would like to see. So people ask me if I still use green. And green was why we first published a subscription journal, and then afterwards, there's after an embargo of 12 months, we then can do our archive and put things in the repository. This is not compatible with plans also. However, those communities, like many mathematicians, who are sharing papers between themselves before they publish it, they organize their own peer review. Perfect. The whole self-archiving and working with specialized repositories is fantastic. But not first in a subscription journal, and then after an embargo, no. That is not in line, not compatible with plans.
Okay, that will be clear. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our speakers. Again,